So I'm going to hand it over to you, Scott, to kick us off for our very first Voices of Safety that Laurel and I are going to be hosting.
Yeah, no, we're hopefully we get a few more folks trickling in, but definitely excited, and it does. I mean, it ties in nicely to the Safety Connect conversation, because last year when we hosted Safety Connect, it was really as a Safeopedia. We're an online publication. We curate and create educational content for the environmental health and safety industry, but we're kind of faceless behind the site. So we're pushing out a lot of content, but nobody really knows or knew who we were. So the conference was our first opportunity to really jump on Zoom calls and engage, with our audience and get some feedback and really kind of dive into some of the issues and topics that people are researching on Safeopedia all the time. And certainly this has been a strange couple of years with COVID. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And definitely some of the feedback that we got from the conference was it was really nice to connect, even in the Zoom, virtual call, just face to face, and have some conversations and connect with your peers. And so we definitely wanted to. We're going to hold a conference every year, but we thought, hey, we could still have a hangout where people could come and connect, and we could talk about specific topics and kind of get feedback and ideas and help direct people to resources that they may be looking for, or may be interested in learning more about. So I won't steal too much of the thunder, but obviously we wanted to kick things off with a pretty important topic to a number of folks with the fire prevention, fire safety. So welcome to the inaugural Voices of Safety session. Really glad everybody could join us today, and I'll turn it over to Tamara to kind of get us going here.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So some of you might know myself and Laurel. We've done Saturday Night Thoughts on LinkedIn, but we wanted to do something more with more people, because people were chatting in the chat, and we was like, well, why don't we open up a Zoom room? So that's how we came here. So Laurel, why don't you introduce our first guest, because you brought them.
Sure. Leslie Atkinson and Rick Wright from Allied Fire Protection.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. I feel like we look like we're about to deliver the news right now. Right. So, but we are really excited to be here and to be a part of this program. So thank you again for inviting us. I think it's important just to start with a little bit about Allied, so you know who we are and where we are. Allied Fire Protection. Our corporate office is based in Pearland, Texas, which is basically a suburb of Houston. We have 6 offices across the state and a travel team that is on the road right now, I believe in Utah and Tennessee. So our story is, I think it's important to know a little bit of background, because Allied started right here in Pearland in 1998 in a garage with some folding tables and a couple of beat up trucks, with 2 best friends that had a dream since they were kids. So Shannon and John, Shannon being our CEO and co-founder, and John, who's since retired, kind of grew up with not the best scenario. For lack of better words, Shannon was an orphan. I know we wouldn't say that in 2021, but he was, and he lived in a boys' home and ran away from Fort Worth and ended up here in Pearland where his family was. And he had some family members take him in, and he started school and met John, who also had grown up without a father. And they were 2 rough young boys in Texas and running amok, but as they grew up together, they dreamed of having a business together. And it took a while. They actually parted ways, and John started in the sprinkler trade, and Shannon went on to school to learn business, and reconnected in their mid to late 20s. And that's when Allied became less of a dream and more of a reality in that garage. And it's funny because that garage is right down the street from our office here. So it's a really neat story. It's kind of, for lack of better terms, the American dream. It's what we all hope for. But the best part is it's important to know where you come from, where we come from, and always remember your roots and what all the steps that it took to get here. But the importance of Allied, which ties into this talk, is that Allied has a mission to continually set the standard of excellence in fire and life safety each and every day. But the foundation of our business is our core values, and our number one core value is safety first. That's what it's built on. And then integrity, customer focused, humility, ownership, and teamwork. But every time we talk and our team gets together, the focus is safety first, because without safety, what's the point of what we're doing? And we don't have a business, we don't have a trade. We want to keep our customers, we want to keep our Allied family safe at all times. So that is the foundation of where Allied started. And we work constantly at this and to continue to improve and do the best we can. So with that, that's why I'm joined today by Rick Wright here. He's our Director of Environmental Health and Safety here at Allied. And he's our safety guru, and he's the person that we all lean on and trust to guide us through and navigate all the safety issues and create our culture here. So I'm going to turn it over to Rick to tell you a little bit about Allied and our safety procedures.
So when we talk about fire protection and kind of what I assume that this call is about, it really comes down, we have to make a clear definition first. There's a difference between prevention and protection. Prevention is what I would say 3/4 of our company does on a daily basis. So, and you'll see this in fire protection organizations around the country. The guys that go out and do inspections, service and maintain, and those types of things, but it's bigger than just that. So as EH&S professionals, we really focus on the prevention side. And it doesn't matter if it's fire protection or fall protection or ladders. Our role is to be preventative. And the more preventative we are, the less likely we are to have those incidents. So when we look at the prevention side, it's all of those little things that we do ahead of time to keep some type of fire or ignition source from happening. And that's everything, and I'll go into this a little bit more, but your pre-planning, your training, your surveying, auditing, and just your overall culture. Mm-hmm. Once you move out of the prevention side, that's when you get into the fire protection side. And this is where if you get nothing else out of this, and I know we've got a very broad audience, if you get nothing else out of this, be very diligent in how you source your fire protection companies, because you have to have proper licensing. You have to have proper training. You have to have the right credentials, because those are the people that are going to help you design the program you have. When you look at fire protection as a whole, you have to look at the pre-planning side of this. And that's everything from, what type of a facility are you protecting? What is your occupancy? What are you going to be doing in it? I can't tell you how many times we go and we do inspections on warehouses that are classified as general use, and somebody set up a welding shop.
Oh, gosh.
Or we go to a strip center that was originally set up for retail, and now somebody's bringing in what are those places, the nail salons. Yeah. Well, now you're introducing chemicals, fumes, chemical waste storage, and all those things, and they don't think they have to upgrade their systems. Well, you do. Okay. So when you look at the fire protection side of that, that's everything from your alarms, your fire suppression systems, your sprinkler systems, your standpipes, all the way down to your exit markings, your fire extinguishers, all of those things, and all of those back into what you do on the prevention side. So from an EH&S standpoint, when you're going around, and it doesn't matter if you're in a refinery, a hospital, a warehouse, a distribution center where you're dealing with DOT vehicles, any of those, you have to revert back to your basics. Do you have clear access? Do you have overhead? So if you've got a sprinkled area, making sure that you don't have things stacked within 3 feet of your sprinkler heads. Do you have clear access around your electrical panels? Do you have clear lines of access to your fire exits? Do you have walls that are blocked? Do you have, and when I say walls that are blocked, if those walls are part of a demising wall that is separating, so you've got to keep a certain amount of space so your sprinklers are able to get around things. And then from there, going into your training. You can have the greatest processes in the world, but if your people don't know how to use them, they're not any good. You know, in the fire academy, we drilled a lot on, you know, how do you set up a fire hydrant? How do you pull hose? You would think pulling hose is simple, but when it's stacked on a truck and you pull it, there's a specific way you have to pull it so that it unravels as you go, you know, backloading. But if you're in a plant or a power plant or something, you've got hose rules, making sure that the guys understand how to use them. How do you charge it? And when you charge it, how do you use the nozzle? Everything. Yep.
I had a question. You're using the word charge. What does that mean?
Turn the water on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
For us laymen, you know.
Yeah, it is
Great
basically,
question.
you know, my kids joke because I'll tell them to charge the garden hose because I'm spraying down the house. But yeah, I mean, it's simple little things. You know, we talk about pass with fire extinguishers, you know, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. But how often do you actually train your people on how to do it? You know, everybody will, you know, they'll pass out a safety meeting and you read it. There's a big difference between knowing what to do and knowing how to do it. And we run into this in safety all the time. You can go through a lot of training, be it ladders, scissor lifts, fall protection, scaffolding, fire extinguishers. If you don't add a hands-on component to that, you're missing a lot of that. And especially when it comes to fire extinguishers, you know, if you contact your local fire departments, 90% of them will come out and do fire extinguisher training with you, and they'll bring a burn barrel out, because there's a big difference between just spraying a fire extinguisher in a field versus actually putting it onto a fire. And having a burn bucket there or having a burn simulator there that you can use is training that people will remember. The other big one that what's that?
I said exactly. We did that in every geriatric job I ever had, nursing homes, assisted livings. We had all the employees go through and actually do it, just actually put out a fire with the extinguisher, and it's so much different than reading it on paper.
You know, I've never been trained that way, that we had a live fire. So that's a really good thing to know about. Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, we do, so to kind of step out of just fire protect, 90% of all the training here we do. So like when we do like MEWPs, mobile elevator work platforms, when we do that training, we also incorporate fall protection. So not only are the guys going through the didactic portion of it, but they're going to operate. And then when they're operating, they're going to talk about, you know, how you actually tie off, how do you anchor, what are your fall restraints, what are your capacity. The more you engage your people in a hands-on real life scenario, the better equipped they are. Most people that are going to see this probably have some type of facility. The big question I was asked, when's the last time you did a fire drill? We used to joke about them when we were in school, but think about it. You know, in our building here, we've got 50 plus people. If I were to pull the alarm, how many of them do you think, or any facility, if you pull the alarm, and I challenge people this all the time when we go to warehouses, you know, pull your fire alarm, see what people do. 90% of the time, people will stop and look at each other and look for somebody to make a decision of what to do. If you do not train people to respond to where it becomes second nature, that's when things bad happen, because they don't know how to respond. We call it stress inoculated training. If you induce that level of stress, then the people will understand what they're doing.
Right.
So we did have a question, actually. Christine, did you want to come? Do you feel comfortable asking on mic?
Oh, sure. I'm fine
Thanks.
asking it on the mic. So one of the questions I had, you know, sometimes it's hard to get everybody together. Have you seen any of that training done with virtual reality?
Which training?
The extinguisher training or any of that kind of stuff. You know, there's a lot of new training things out there with VR, and I was just curious if you'd seen anything done, you know, and how it compared to doing it in real life.
So I've seen some virtual reality fire extinguisher trainers where they have basically a big monitor screen, and the nozzle on the extinguisher has a probe, much like a pointer, where you actually have to hit the right points. It's kind of like playing a video game. I haven't ever used it. I've seen them. When I do fire extinguisher training, I like to use the burn bucket, because then you can actually feel the heat. And feeling that heat, feeling that pressure, it just adds another level to the training, in my opinion.
Sure.
You know, but when I say, you know, training, that's that's a big component of it. You know, you talked about in geriatric scenarios, knowing the people that are in your building. Do you have people that have deficiencies in hearing, limited mobility, those types of things? If so, who's going to help them get out?
Right.
You know, in my last company, we had a gentleman that was in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, if we have a fire, who's going to make sure he's able to get to the fire exit that is set up for wheelchair accessibility? So
Right.
those are the types of things you have to look at as far as training. And then the last component I would talk about is the survey side of it. So I use the term survey. I'm not a big guy for audits. When I think of audits, I think of the IRS. I like to survey my environment. So we go around, we have weekly checklists that we use when we go through our facilities. We're looking at access to the fire extinguishers, access to our breaker panels, material handling and storage. How are we accessing those types of things? Is our phone extensions up to date? So we know, because every office in our building has a phone, and even the offices where we've got 3 or 4 people, each person has an extension. We update that list every month because then that becomes our accountability roster when we evacuate. Do you have designated
idea.
areas? You know, every company has a phone list. That is a pre-built accountability list for if you have to evacuate your building. You know, it's just using simple things that you have to help you be successful in that. Looking at your firefighter access. Do you have good access to find? You know, you paint your curbs red, but when's the last time you cleaned the curbs? You know, so the guys are able to see it. When's the last time you had the fire department out to walk through your facility?
Yep.
We just had the fire department here 2 months ago, and I walked through the whole facility. We checked all of our Knox boxes. We went through all of our shutdown we've got an overhead gantry crane, going through shutdown procedures for that. So that if they come, they're familiar with our facility, but they're also familiar with what to expect from us in the event of an emergency.
I think that one thing that, I mean, we all know just from movies and TV, what you see is not real. The most important thing is if that fire alarm sounds or that sprinkler system discharges, exit.
Yep.
And get there quickly. Just get out.
Yes.
Don't stand around. I see it all too often. We hear about it. People waiting around to see if it's real. It doesn't matter. Go, because there's a reason it's going off. And it's better to walk out and find out it was a waste of a walk than it is to stay and find out that the outcome's not so good. So at the end of the day, our systems are designed to get you out safely and basically save your life. And
Yeah.
that's the purpose of it.
Yeah, and it has to be a tiered approach. You have to have a good alarm system for the early detection. You have to have, you know, a system that is operating to the efficiency of what your building needs are. Because you got to remember, in a environment where most of us are working, those sprinklers are designed to help give you safe passage out first. Secondarily, they're there to protect your assets.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's about life safety, getting the lives out.
Thank you. That was great. We greatly appreciate you sharing that. Now, you have a few more minutes before we bring Gabe to share his story. Was there any last thoughts that you wanted to share with people, or a question that people had for Leslie and Rick? We're going to have a larger Q&A at the end, 30 minutes, and we're going to do breakout rooms, but just in case anything was touched on now.
Rick, did y'all?
One thing that is interesting is to just ask questions. If you have a question, if you live in an apartment building, if you work in a building that's got a system, if your kids go to a school, it's okay to ask questions if they're up to date. It is your life. It's your life safety. I think it's very important to know. If you ever see anyone from our team in a building, the first thing we do is check the extinguishers and look up. It's just habit for us now. But I want to know that they're up to date, because now, you know, my life safety is in that building as well. So I think it's important just to ask questions. Don't be afraid.
And the last thing I would say is this, the life safety program that you have, it has to be about the culture of your company. And that culture has to be built, and you can use it. The more people you engage in your fire protection systems, your fire protection program, the better off you're going to be. Because when I'm out, I only see limited things because I'm one person going to multiple locations. But the more people that I've empowered to be able to act on it, the better off we are. So we have admins in our building that have been trained on how to inspect fire extinguishers, what to look for on fire extinguishers. So it's all about empowering your people to make the changes that you want to have happen.
Great points.
Now, we did have one question from Ryan Smith. Ryan, did you feel comfortable coming on mic and sharing, or did you want me to read?
Ryan?
I'm going to read it. So, who do you call at the fire department to request an inspection?
You can call the fire marshal, and they'll be able to help set it up. Usually most of your departments have it's typically one of the fire marshals or somebody that's part of the education that goes around and does like a lot of the training at the schools and stuff. You can coordinate with them and they'll come out and help do inspections, and they'll actually walk through the facility with you and give you some pointers if you ask them to.
So Gabriel is going to share with us his story. Come on, Mike, Gabe. Gabriel? You're muted.
Oh, there we go. How about that?
There you go. There you go.
Awesome. Awesome. So, again, my name is Gabe Alvarado. From Corpus Christi, Texas, born and raised. And a little bit about myself. Have over 29 years experience in the oil refining industry. 15 of it has been emergency response. I was a fireman, driver operator. Moved on to operations, multi-skilled tech in a refinery. I worked in the alkylation unit, making gasoline using our HF as a catalyst to make alkylation, which HF is the most deadliest chemical we got on the roads. And the rest of my year has been in emergency response, emergency as far as after my accident, and my disabilities kept me confined to a desk. Using my experience from the refinery piping side to operations and so forth. July 19, 2009 was a typical morning for me, just like it is for everyone else, getting up to bed, going to work. Except that weekend was my day off, but they called me in on that Sunday, July 19, 2009. I went in that morning to do this shift relief. I got there that morning and we made shift talk and gave me the radio, and we moved on through that morning. And this is about 4:30 in the morning. And as I went out with my daily routine in the unit, was checking for obvious housekeeping hazards, obvious vibrations through the machinery, through the units, any oil leaks, any visible, possible out of the norm. Came back to the comfort station to have our meeting and breakfast. And from 4 in the morning till that time at 8:20 in the morning, which is that 4-hour difference, the call came in. It came from a board across the street, said, "Hey, we've lost pressure in the unit." Mind you, I had just walked past all that, hours, maybe 2 hours prior. Everything was fine. So the panic on the radio, you could tell something was wrong. And so we ran out of the comfort station. And on my bike, I had my level to the suit, acid resistant, looks almost like a rain jacket, but it's acid resistant. And that was our level D. Put that on right away and put the pants, the jacket, rubber boots, gloves, face shield and all, and tended on the bike and got to the unit. As I was there, it was dead silence. You could hear things pressuring up. So I went to start the pumps. Nothing was happening. People start coming. They started trying to start the other pumps. Nothing. So I knew by training and past scenarios that someone had to go vent a flare. So I took that task on, going vent a flare, which consisted of me climbing 40 feet up in the air. So when I climbed that second level to get to where I was going at, the midway of the climb, I heard a boom, just a big pop. And I paused for that moment. and looked around and kept climbing because I still had to release the pressure to vent a flare so it could flare off. That, you know, when we drive by the refineries, a big old flare stack sometimes going to relieve the pressure. So I went up there, vented the flare, and as I looked down, I was engulfed. You could see the engulf of a cloud coming up towards me underneath. So I too ran down the stairs, I mean, the ladder that I was on, got to the bottom. And when I went to a fire hydrant, because again, I was a fireman, so my training kicked in, went to a hydrant. By the time I got to the hydrant, I heard the woof, and that was the ignition that came. And when I went through that ignition at that moment, you know, I'm a person of faith. I prayed at that moment. I said, Lord, protect me, take care of my family. And at that moment, I went through a shiver. And that shiver was so quick and so fast that it almost felt like just a dead zone where I was able to say what I need to say and get done. But it was literally like a blink of an eye that it happened. I was stripping of every article of clothing, from that first level D to my regular Nomex suit, down to my shorts, to nothing. All I had was my rubber boots, my leather belt. And at that moment, when I went through that shiver, I realized that I was burned. And I looked down and I could feel the adrenaline rush coming from my feet up to my head. So the first thing I did, due to training and how we always practice, I grabbed the mic. I said, hey, this is Gabe Alvarado. I need help. Nothing. So I was like, man, what's going on? So I grabbed the radio mic again. I said, come back, comm center. This is Gabe Alvarado. I need help. I'm on the west side of the Alki unit. Nothing. So I decided to start walking away, and I start to pick up the mic the third time. Then I realized the mic was melted and the radio wires were all fried. So as I was walking away, the second explosion happened. And as I was going away, maybe about 50 feet, I could feel the heat as I'm walking away. Mind you, I only have rubber boots and a leather belt and my burnt mic. And my helmet had blew off. But so again, I was in adrenaline. I was in a mode to survive. And I went to a change house looking for my badge to scan in. It too had melted. So I saw a coworker coming around the corner of the unit. I said, hey, it's me, Gabe. You got a badge to scan me in so I could decon myself. So at that moment when that happened, he scanned me in. The first thing I did was I went to the mirror and I looked at myself. When I looked in the mirror, I was like, wow, thank you, Jesus. Because even though y'all don't know what I looked like before, I had a heavy mustache. I was always bald and I had ears and I had my heavy eyebrows. And I said, thank you, Jesus. Because even in that ignition, at that moment, I'm like, man, that intense heat, it was over 3,000 degrees. I still didn't lose, you know, you would singe your hair and all that, but I still had my mustache and eyebrows. So again, I knew what to do. I turned on the shower. I sat on the bench, took off my rubber boots, took off my socks, and just took off my belt, and I jumped in the shower. And I deconned myself for about 5 minutes. And I was waiting and waiting for the paramedics, the firefighters to come in, which were my former brothers. And I had pretty much everything done. You know, they're like, man, you did this. The only thing is I don't remember them putting glucose on me, but they put glucose all over me because of the HF that was in the cloud. So 45 minutes later, that's how long it took. 45 minutes, I found out, for an ambulance to get to me. Laid on the gurney, lights out. As I realized I was in a 90-day coma, I had lost my limb. I had almost lost this one. I lost all my eye. This is all reconstruction. My lower lip, my ears had to be made. I was burned 65% in and out. I inhaled it. And I didn't even think I inhaled it, but it happened. My lungs were all black, maybe a quarter size pink. I was given 24 hours to live. And me not knowing what I had been through because I was in a coma state, when I had got up from this, it's almost like my mind accepted what happened because I didn't know I lost my arm. And I was doing things, I had to learn how to walk again. You know, I was in a 90-day coma and learning on how to walk. I mean, it was almost like a wet noodle. I stood up and I was like, what happened? I fell to the ground. So having to learn how to walk, I was supposed to be blind. I was supposed to be on a wheelchair, but the good Lord kept me here on this earth in the condition I am now. And what I do now, what I did do for the company was, like I explained before, there's so many angles I have on speaking this subject. You know, I could go from new employee talks to contractors in a turnaround and talk about the importance of safety, or I could talk to operators, you know, because there's so many scenarios, like, you know, we're talking about fire protection, making sure that the equipment's in tip-top shape, ready to be used. Second is knowing how to use it. And a lot of the problems in operations is we train every year. I know because I was one of the trainer, excuse me. And a lot of times, all of us here, we could be in a facing scenario and each one of us is gonna react different. And lots of times when we're in a situation where there's fire, and let's say even if we were to do a trash can fire, someone's gonna jump, someone may run, and some may stay and fight the fire, as little as it may be. But
Gabe, I have a question for you. What do you think we as professionals could be doing to help avoid horrible situations like this? Like, is there something we're missing that maybe we need to be you know, highlighted?
It's sad to say we learn something new, and everybody can, you know, agree to this. We always learn something new out of an incident.
Yeah.
Because there's been prior incidents in our history to be where we're at today. And in my particular incident, we didn't have battery limit meters for picking up hydrocarbons. We're only picking up HF. So the 98% or 95% of the product that the cloud I was talking about was hydrocarbon. It was just waiting for ignition source. We were looking for HF. The monitors didn't go off till it hit 10%. I was at 5%. So incidents, you always create something, you learn something new from an incident. And I had to take the hit on this one. But I mean, it's hard because, you know, me speaking, and I've done different talks elsewhere, you would think safety is the same, but it really isn't. You know, it really isn't. The culture is not the same when it should be the same. Everybody has different, I mean, you would think, like I said, you think it'd be the same, but it isn't.
Now on the flare, why wasn't there a remote start on that?
You know, that's probably something they have now because we didn't have it then.
Okay.
We learned, always new things come up, and remote flare valve would have been perfect for me. They could have done that.
Yeah.
Keeping me from going to do it.
Now, since that event, have they set new limits for identifying those?
Yes, there is now. Yes, there is now. There is, like I said, there's new perimeter markers for the hydrocarbon, and then plus the flare valve release valve.
And do they add additional PPE?
No, because of the incident, I was wearing what I was supposed to.
Okay.
But when the ignition happened, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You would almost have to be in a flash suit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, there was no angle for it because at the moment, you know, I was in a level D, splash resistant.
Well, I'm glad that I'm glad that second with the Lord saved you, man.
Oh, yeah. There's most definitely a reason why I'm here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Tamara.
Laurel, do you want to lead us into the next part?
Sure. I really just wanted to thank Gabe for sharing. That's the first time I ever heard it. That's an amazing story, and I'm glad he's here, and I'm glad that he's going to be able to share his message with a lot of other people.
Thank you.
So the second part of this is breakout rooms, and we will have Leslie and Rick in one breakout room, and Gabe Encarnacion in the other, who is who has a PPE company, something Lighthouse. I got the name right, but I can't get the company right.
That's a long story.
Okay.
But it's BBL Safety. BENNETT,
BBL
BOWEN, and Lighthouse.
Safety.
That's what it is.
Yes, so he will be in the other breakout room if people have any specific questions for either of the companies. We try not to actually sell on the Voices of Safety, but if you'd like to go into the breakout room, then find out more about any kind of equipment or services that either of these companies offer.
So just in a nutshell, before people pick rooms, Gabe, what are you going to talk about in your room?
Mainly, I'm just going to be covering, actually just discussing the use of PPE. That's what we do most of our, that's mainly our business is general PPE, but also looking at the different services related to training and consulting and things like that. Safety is more than just the stuff that you put on. It's knowing what to do with it and the greater concept behind it. So that's what I'll be kind of discussing and kicking around.
Okay, you can go into your room and then people can click join if you want to join Gabe and talk about PPE. And Leslie and Rick, what about you two in your room?
We were just looking to answer any questions that anyone has regarding fire and life safety, fire safety systems, obviously fire alarm, fire sprinkler, extinguishers, kitchen hood systems, anything like that we can guide on.
And just general, pre-planning, things like that. There's a lot of things that we can do, or that EH&S professionals can do on the preventative side.
Yeah.
Great. So I'll ask you to go into your room, and then people, if you just want to click on a room that you want to join, and then Gabriel Alvarado and us are going to stay in this room.